Welcome back. President Trump has postponed the signing of an executive order related to artificial intelligence. The president was expected to sign that order this afternoon, but told reporters he had concerns about its potential impact on the economy. The issue of AI is playing prominently in a closely watched and crowded congressional primary in New York City to replace retiring Congressman Jerry Nadler, where the candidates include a member of the Kennedy family. Alex Boris, a state assembly member who sponsored a far-reaching AI safety bill, is at the center of a proxy war between tech industry leaders over regulating AI and is being attacked on the airwaves by a pro-AI super PAC. Alex Boris joins me now. Thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
I want to start off by just getting you to respond to President Trump. He was supposed to sign that AI executive order today. He decided to postpone it amid concerns about the economy. I know you don't know every word that was in that executive order, but what do you make of that and that tension between expanding access to AI and potential concerns about the economy?
Trump, who bounces from idea to idea, almost went in the right direction. Now, I'm not actually sure that the program as designed would get all the benefits that we would want. I would want to see the word-by-word pieces of it, but he's spent at least a year and a half claiming that there should be no regulation of AI whatsoever and mirroring what his mega donors have been saying, even though 80% of Americans want to see guardrails put on AI that keeps us safe from the absolute worst outcomes.
Let's talk about you. You sponsored what's called the RAISE Act, which regulates AI in New York as a member of the state assembly. Would you intend to sponsor similar legislation if you were to win in November?
Absolutely. And in fact, I would go further than what we've done in the RAISE Act. And I would note that so many people that opposed some of the things I wanted to do before have now embraced it. Even OpenAI has recently been saying that they praise the RAISE Act and are praising an Illinois bill that has audit provisions, third-party audit provisions that are copied from an earlier version of the RAISE Act. So the vision that we put forward in last year and even before when I drafted in 2024 has just been proven correct. It's now time to have a federal standard that keeps us safe not only from catastrophic risks, which is what the RAISE Act focuses on, but the impact on our kids, the impact on the labor force, the impact on our climate and environment. This is a place that is screaming for government action, and it's time we get it done.
All right, let's turn to your primary now. You are facing, as you well know, a very crowded field of candidates to succeed Jerry Nadler, including Michael Lasher, who Nadler has endorsed, and Jack Schlossberg, an heir to the Kennedy lineage. How do you break through here? What's your strategy to win and, frankly, beat a Kennedy?
I'm focused on what I am hearing from my neighbors, and they are talking about the cost of living and how it keeps going up, and they have a federal regime that campaigned on lowering prices but has done anything since, has just been serving the same oligarchs that got them there. I've been talking about corruption in government and the fact that Trump in the first quarter of this year made a stock trade every 6.5 minutes and is just doing it based on insider trading. We need to ban the president and members of Congress from trading stocks. And more, they're coming up and talking to me about AI. When I launched the campaign, I thought, I'm not really going to mention it. I'm already known for nationally for pushing this forward. Time magazine named me one of the 100 most influential people in the world in AI for passing the RAISE Act. But I tell you, more and more neighbors are coming up to me and saying, hey, what's going on as they're rolling it out in my kids' elementary school? How should I be reacting to that? What's going to happen to the new grad, my new grad's job? How do I prepare them for the economy that's coming? How much of the rise in my utility bills comes from AI? And so this has been the case of an issue that I've been talking about strongly for some time now, is now raising up in everyone's mind.
I do want to ask you about the big news for Democrats today, the DNC releasing its autopsy from the 2024 election. What was your reaction to the fact that it took this long, and what were your key takeaways?
It took too long and also wasn't thorough at all. This is a serious set of questions for us to grapple with. How have we lost to Donald Trump twice now, but after seeing everything that he did in his first term, you know, this is not a person that we should be losing to. The DNC should be diving really seriously into some hard questions about how we can make progress in the future. And I think it's quite clear that the report was not up to that standard.
So let me ask you, if Democrats do win back the House in November, do you have confidence in Hakeem Jeffries to be the House Speaker? And what do you think the first priority should be?
Yes, I intend to vote for Speaker Jeffries. I'll note also no one else is running, and he's done a great job of legislating from the minority and getting dispatch petitions there, et cetera. But we should hold all our leaders to a high standard, and I'll hope to keep doing that. And the first priority is a ethics package, is ending this corruption that we're seeing from government. We need to prove to Americans that government can actually solve problems for them, that we are working on their behalf. And we do that by holding ourselves to a high ethical standard and then actually delivering real results for people that impact their bills, that lower their cost of living, that protect them from AI and protect them from the threats that they're seeing.
And what about your fellow New Yorker, Chuck Schumer? Should he remain as Senate leader after this year's midterms?
I will leave questions about the Senate to the Senate. I am running for the House right now. I've had a very productive relationship with Senator Schumer. And as I said, we should hold all of our leaders to a very high standard.
We have about 30 seconds left. Do you think New York Democrats should continue to pursue redistricting efforts ahead of the 2028 election, given this war over redistricting?
Absolutely, yes, while also being clear that when we control all of Congress and the presidency, we will pass a national ban on partisan gerrymandering. That is the other side of the coin of the ethics that we hold ourselves to, of not trading stocks, is having a fair election system with bans on partisan gerrymandering, campaign finance reform, actually having voters choose their elected officials and not elected officials choose their voters.
All right, New York Assemblyman Alex Boris, thank you very much for your time.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.